When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. I don't even know why I smiled. Maybe it was because I had forgotten what anger felt like after so many years of keeping quiet. Maybe it was easier to smile than to fall apart in front of her. She stood by the doorway of my son's house, holding the edge of the door like she was waiting for me to argue. But I didn't. I just looked at her, the woman I had once called my own, and whispered, "Okay, sweetheart," before stepping outside. The night air felt colder than usual. It wasn't even winter yet, but my hands trembled as I walked down the little stone path toward my car. The porch light flickered behind me, and I could see her shadow standing there, still watching me, not saying another word. I sat in the car for a long time before turning the key. I could hear the faint laughter of my grandchildren from inside the house. It used to be my favorite sound. I used to sit on that same porch rocking them to sleep, telling them stories about how their father, my son, used to build forts in the living room and make a mess I never had the heart to clean. But that night, everything felt distant, like those memories belonged to someone else. It's strange how families fall apart quietly, not with shouting, not with fights. Sometimes it happens with silence, with looks that linger a bit too long, or words that are never said but always felt. I don't think my son even knew what had happened that night. He was away on a business trip, texting me earlier to ask if I needed anything. I told him no. I always told him no. He trusted her, and so did I. When she first came into our lives, I welcomed her with open arms. I still remember the day my son brought her home. She had this gentle smile and nervous eyes, the kind that make you want to protect someone. I told everyone, I finally have a daughter. And for a while, it really felt that way. But something changed. I can't even tell you when it started. Just little things. Little moments that slipped past unnoticed until they grew too heavy to ignore. That night, as I drove away from the house I once helped build, I kept wondering if she knew how deeply her words had cut me. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she thought I was stronger than I really was. But what she said, and what she did, that night, that was the moment I realized trust, once broken, doesn't make a sound when it falls apart. When I think back to how it all began, I sometimes wonder if I missed the signs early on. But truthfully, in the beginning there were no signs. There was only love. Simple, trusting love. My son, Michael, had always been a quiet child. Thoughtful, patient, the kind who never raised his voice, even as a little boy. He was my only child, and maybe because of that I held on to him a little too tightly. After his father passed away when Michael was in college, we only had each other. We shared a small house on the edge of town, the kind of place where neighbors waved from their porches and kids rode their bikes down the middle of the street because no one drove too fast. Life was simple. We didn't have much, but we had each other. And when he met her, when he met Emily, I thought my prayers had been answered. I still remember the first time he brought her over. It was a Sunday afternoon. I had made roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and my mother's gravy recipe. The table was set, candles flickering, and I'd even picked fresh flowers from the garden, pink lilies, her favorite, though I didn't know that yet. She walked in wearing a soft blue dress and a smile that reached her eyes. She carried a pie, homemade, still warm, and apologized for not knowing if I liked apple or cherry. I laughed and told her, "Honey, I'll eat anything that smells that good." From that day, something about her just felt right. She was polite, kind, a little shy, the kind of girl you could see building a life with. I watched the way she looked at my son, and I knew he was already lost in her. Over the months that followed, she visited often. Sometimes she'd come without him, just to spend time with me. We'd cook together, or go through old family albums. She'd sit by the kitchen counter, asking about Michael's childhood stories, laughing when I told her how he once tried to build a tree house out of cardboard boxes. Don't tell him I told you that, I'd whisper, and she'd giggle like a daughter sharing a secret with her mother. When they got married, it felt like my heart had grown another piece. I stood at the church that day, watching my son's face glow with a happiness I hadn't seen since his father died. And when Emily walked down the aisle, there was this light around her, that kind of soft, quiet beauty that doesn't ask to be noticed, but somehow fills the whole room. During the reception, she hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for raising him." Those words, I carried them for years. When they moved into their new home, just 15 minutes from mine, I promised not to visit too often. I wanted to give them space. I'd read all those articles about boundaries in modern families. But still, every Sunday, Michael would call. "Mom, Emily made your favorite pot roast," he'd say. "Come over." Those dinners became my favorite part of the week. We'd sit at their long oak table, the kids, later when they came, coloring at the end, Emily serving food with that same gentle smile. She always made sure my plate was full before her own. She called me Mom, not Mrs. Carter, not mother-in-law, just Mom. The first time she said it, I felt tears sting my eyes. I helped her through her first pregnancy. She was nervous, like most new mothers are. I stayed with her during the last few weeks before delivery, cooking her soups, rubbing her back when she couldn't sleep, folding tiny clothes in the nursery. When her daughter was born, little Grace, I was the first one to hold her. Emily was exhausted, pale but smiling. She looked at me and said, "She's lucky to have you." Those words melted me. She made me feel like I belonged, not just as a visitor, but as part of something whole again. The years went by softly, like pages turning in a quiet book. I became the babysitter, the storyteller, the one who made cookies and read bedtime tales when Michael and Emily had late nights. Their home felt like an extension of mine. I'd let myself in sometimes with the spare key they'd given me. There were mornings when I'd be in the kitchen making pancakes before they even woke up. Emily would come down, rubbing her eyes, laughing. "You spoil us, Mom?" she'd say. And I'd smile, pretending I didn't live for those moments. We'd talk about everything. Recipes, parenting, even the little frustrations that came with marriage. She'd sit across from me, sipping tea, her hair messy from the morning rush, and ask, "Did you ever get mad at your husband?" I'd laugh and say, "Oh, more times than I can count." We'd share stories about love and patience, about how men sometimes forget the small things but mean well anyway. I thought we understood each other. I thought we were the same. Two women bound by love for the same man, just in different ways. When Grace started school, things began to change, though I didn't notice it right away. Emily had started working part-time. She was busier, more tired. Our coffee chats became shorter. The Sunday dinners less frequent. At first I understood. Life gets hectic, but slowly the calls became fewer. Sometimes I'd stop by and she'd seem distracted. She'd smile, but it didn't reach her eyes anymore. Once, I came over with a casserole, her favorite. She opened the door just a little, thanked me and said, "Oh, we're just about to head out, Mom. Maybe next time." I remember standing there, holding that warm dish in my hands as they drove away. I watched the car disappear, and for the first time, the house felt like a stranger's. But I told myself not to overthink it. People change. Routines change. I didn't want to be the kind of mother-in-law who complained or clung, so I smiled, went home, and told myself it was nothing. Then came the little things that built up quietly. The missed birthdays, the canceled dinners, the polite but distant phone calls. Michael said they were just busy. That work was stressful. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. And yet sometimes when I called, Emily's voice sounded colder, polite, but no longer warm. There was something in her tone I couldn't place. A hint of irritation, like she was waiting for me to finish speaking, still. I kept loving her the same, because that's what you do for family. You love, even when it's not returned the same way. I didn't know it then, but those quiet changes were leading to the night that would break me. The night when I'd learn that trust, no matter how deep, can crumble. In a single moment, I used to think love could fix everything, that if you gave enough of your heart, people would see it and never doubt you. But I've learned that sometimes love becomes quiet, invisible, even, and people mistake its silence for absence. It began with small moments, moments so ordinary that no one else would have noticed. One Saturday afternoon, I stopped by to drop off some old books for Grace. She'd always loved story time with me. Goodnight Moon, The Velveteen Rabbit, those were our favorites. When I rang the doorbell, I heard voices inside. Emily opened the door, holding her phone in one hand, her eyes darting between me and the hallway behind her. "Oh, Mom, hi," she said. Her tone was polite, but something about it felt off. I smiled and held up the books. "Just thought Grace might like these." "Oh, that's sweet. Thank you. She didn't invite me in." Instead, she glanced over her shoulder. "We're just having a bit of a family moment right now. Maybe next time?" It was small, hardly worth noticing. But as I walked back to my car, I realized she hadn't even looked at the books. I sat behind the wheel, staring at the house, the home that once welcomed me without hesitation. I could hear Grace laughing inside, a sound that used to bring me joy. But that day, it hurt. I told myself not to be sensitive. Emily was busy. She had 2 kids now, a demanding job, and a husband who often traveled for work. I reminded myself that times change, people change. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. The next time I saw her was at Grace's dance recital. I got there early, saving them seats in the front row. When they arrived, Emily smiled, but it was brief, like she was forcing it. She sat 2 seats away from me, whispering something to Michael. During the recital, I tried not to let it bother me. I focused on Grace, twirling in her little blue dress, her face glowing under the stage lights. But when the performance ended, and families rushed forward with flowers and hugs, Emily was the first to reach Grace. I watched from a few steps behind as she knelt, wrapping her arms around her daughter. "You were perfect," she whispered. When Grace turned to look for me, Emily stood and said quickly, "Say thank you to Grandma," before leading her away. I stood there, holding my small bouquet of daisies, Grace's favorite. I wanted to believe Emily hadn't meant to exclude me, but her eyes avoided mine the entire time. That night, I called Michael. I told myself I wasn't calling to complain, just to talk. "Mom," he said, his voice tired but kind. "Emily's been under a lot of stress. Work's been tough, and the kids are wearing her out. Try not to take it personally, okay?" "Of course," I said softly. "I understand." And I did. At least, I thought I did. But what I couldn't understand was why the distance felt so deliberate. She stopped calling me Mom. It was subtle at first. She'd just say my name. Margaret, like we were acquaintances. The first time she did it, I laughed it off, but the next few times, it stung. Then came the Thanksgiving that changed everything. Every year, I hosted Thanksgiving dinner. It was tradition, one I'd cherished since Michael was little. The smell of turkey roasting, the sound of laughter in the kitchen, the sight of family gathered around one table. It was the one day that made all the years of loneliness worth it. That year, I called Emily a week before. "I'm thinking of trying a new stuffing recipe," I said. "You can bring your famous sweet potatoes." There was a pause on the line. "Oh, about that," she said slowly. "We were actually planning to host Thanksgiving here this year." I blinked, unsure if I'd heard her right. "Oh, that's new?" "Yes, we thought it might be easier for the kids. Less driving around. I forced a smile she couldn't see. Of course. That sounds nice. But when I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. For 28 years, Thanksgiving had been mine to give. And just like that, it was gone. When the day came, I baked pies anyway. 2 apple, 1 pumpkin. It was my way of contributing, of holding on to something familiar. When I arrived, the house was full of laughter. Emily's parents were there, her sister too. I hadn't realized they were invited. I felt out of place the moment I stepped inside. Emily greeted me politely. "Hi, Margaret. You brought pies? That's sweet. Just set them on the counter." I smiled, even as my heart sank at the sound of my own name again. Dinner was lovely. At least it looked that way. The table was full, the food delicious. But I noticed little things. Emily's father carving the turkey, even though that had always been Michael's job. Her mother pouring the wine. Setting the tone. Emily laughing more with her family than with mine. At one point, her sister asked how often I saw the kids. Emily hesitated. "Oh, she said lightly, "when schedules allow." I tried to smile, but my chest tightened. After dinner, I offered to help clean up. Emily shook her head. No, you sit. You've done enough." I wanted to tell her I hadn't done anything, that I wanted to help. But her voice left no room for argument, so I sat alone in the living room, watching the flicker of candles from the dining table. The laughter carried from the kitchen, but none of it reached me. That was the first time I truly felt like an outsider in my own son's home. The weeks that followed were quiet. Too quiet. I tried calling, but Emily rarely answered. When she did, the calls were short, polite, and distant. Michael always sounded distracted. "Work's been crazy," he'd say. "Emily's swamped and the kids have soccer, piano, everything." I'd nod, even though he couldn't see me. "I understand, sweetheart," but something inside me began to ache. It wasn't loneliness, not really. It was something deeper. The feeling of being quietly erased. One afternoon in early spring, I decided to stop by unannounced. It had been nearly 3 weeks since I'd seen the children, and I missed them terribly. I baked a batch of chocolate chip cookies, the kind Grace and little Ethan loved, and drove over. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed another car parked outside, a woman's car I didn't recognize. I knocked softly, balancing the plate in one hand. Emily opened the door. Her expression changed the moment she saw me. "Oh. Hi," she said. "We weren't expecting you." I smiled, trying to keep my tone light. "I just wanted to drop these off for the kids." From behind her, I heard laughter, a woman's voice. "Oh," Emily said quickly. "A friend of mine's here. We're just having some coffee." "Oh, of course. I won't stay." She hesitated, her hand still on the door. "Thank you for the cookies." I waited for her to say more, to invite me in, even for a minute, but she didn't. The door closed softly, and I stood there on the porch, staring at the wood grain. I don't know how long I stood there, but the cookies had gone cold by the time I got back in my car. The drive home was a blur. The streets looked the same oak trees, the same little shops I'd always passed. But something inside me had shifted. When I got home, I set the empty plate on the counter and sat down at the kitchen table. The ticking clock was the only sound in the room. For years, I had been part of that home, part of their world. Now, I was standing on the outside, looking in. I didn't tell Michael. I couldn't. He loved Emily, and I didn't want to make things harder for him. But I began to wonder if he noticed the distance too. The way she never mentioned me anymore. The way she flinched slightly when my name came up. A few months later, it became clear that the distance wasn't accidental. Michael called one evening, his voice quiet. "Mom, Emily's been feeling like maybe we need a little more space. As a family, she thinks it's better for the kids to have their own rhythm." I felt my throat tighten. "Space? Just for a little while. She said she feels overwhelmed sometimes. I think she just needs some breathing room. I wanted to ask, breathing room from what? From love? From family? But I didn't. Instead, I said, of course, sweetheart. Tell her I understand. I hung up the phone and sat there, staring at the wall. That's when I realized love doesn't always fade loudly. Sometimes it slips away so quietly that you don't notice until it's gone. I tried to keep my dignity. I visited less, called less. I told myself it was just a phase. But inside, I knew. Every family has a moment when something small begins to break. A forgotten word. A closed door. A silence that lingers too long. And though I didn't know it yet, mine was about to reach the night that would change everything. The night I'd finally learn why Emily wanted me gone. The night that would tear open everything I thought I knew about trust, family, and love. It had been raining since morning, the kind of steady, quiet rain that makes the world feel smaller, like everything is wrapped in a thin veil of sadness. I'd been sitting by the window all afternoon, staring at the gray sky, thinking about calling Michael. But I didn't want to be a burden. I hadn't seen the kids in nearly a month, and I missed them more than I wanted to admit. Around 6, I got a text from him. Mom, Emily's home tonight if you want to stop by and see the kids. I'll be late. Just like that, a small bit of warmth flickered inside me. Maybe things were softening again. Maybe she was ready to talk. I baked a small apple pie, her favorite, and drove over, the windshield wipers clicking in rhythm with my heartbeat. The neighborhood was quiet. Their house glowed softly in the rain, warm light spilling from the living room window. When I rang the doorbell, it took her a while to answer. When she did, she looked surprised. Not angry, just tired. Oh. Hi, Margaret, she said. I smiled gently. Michael said it was okay if I came by. I made something for the kids. She hesitated before opening the door wider. Sure, come in. I stepped inside, brushing rain from my coat. The house smelled like lavender and fresh laundry, the kind of homely scent that once meant comfort to me. The kids were upstairs, she said. Grace has got homework and Ethan's already in bed. That's all right, I said softly. I'll just wait a bit to say goodnight. She nodded, but her eyes didn't meet mine. The silence between us sat heavy. I set the pie on the counter and tried to fill the quiet. How've you been? I asked. You look tired. She gave a small, polite smile. It's been a long week. I could feel something sitting unsaid in the room, something she was holding on to. I tried to ignore it, but my heart was beating fast. I thought of all the weeks, the months of distance, the missed calls, the short visits, the polite smiles that never reached her eyes. Finally, I said softly, Emily, did I do something wrong? She froze for a moment, her hand still on the counter. What do you mean? I mean, you've seemed distant lately. I can't help but feel like I've offended you somehow. She sighed, pressing her hands against the counter's edge. It's not that simple. Then tell me, I whispered. I'm not here to argue. I miss you. I miss the family. That was when she turned to face me fully. Her eyes were tired, her voice low. You don't realize how hard it's been, do you? My chest tightened. Hard, having you here? All the time. Feeling like there's no space that's just ours. You mean, well, I know you do. But sometimes it feels like you're still trying to be in charge. Like you're the one raising this family. Not me. Her words hit harder than I expected. I opened my mouth to respond. But nothing came out. She continued, her tone steady. Not cruel, just full of exhaustion. When I first married Michael, you were wonderful. You helped me so much. I don't know what I would have done without you. But as time went on, I felt like I couldn't breathe. Every decision, every little thing, it felt like you were watching, judging, stepping in before I even had a chance to try. I never meant to, I said quickly, tears burning behind my eyes. I only wanted to help. I know, she said softer now. But that's the problem. You're always helping. And it made me feel like I was never enough. Not as a wife, not as a mother. I stood still, her words echoing in the quiet kitchen. The rain outside had grown heavier, pattering against the windows like a rhythm to our silence. I didn't know you felt that way, I said finally. You should have told me. I tried, she whispered. But you never heard it that way. You always smiled and said everything was fine. But it wasn't fine, Margaret. I felt like I was living in someone else's shadow. Your shadow. I turned away for a moment, staring at the framed photo on the wall, the one of all of us at Grace's 5th birthday. We were smiling, arms wrapped around each other. It felt like a lifetime ago. I loved you, I said quietly. I still do. You became the daughter I never had. I thought you felt the same. She closed her eyes. I do care about you, but love isn't the same as comfort. And lately I haven't been comfortable. Her honesty cut deeper than any anger could have. There was no shouting, no cruelty, just truth, raw and unpolished. After a long pause, she spoke again. Michael doesn't know how to say this, but we both agreed we need some space. For the kids, for us, I think it would be better if you didn't come by unannounced anymore. I swallowed hard. You mean I shouldn't come here? She hesitated. Not for a while. Maybe until things settle? I nodded slowly, though my vision blurred. I understand. Please don't take it the wrong way, she said softly. This isn't about punishing you. It's about setting boundaries. Boundaries. That word felt like a wall between us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the steady fall of rain. Then I said, almost in a whisper, you know, after your mother passed, I prayed that Michael would find someone who would love him the way I did. When he found you, I thought my prayers had been answered. Her eyes softened, just for a moment. I thought I was giving you a home, I continued. I never realized I was taking away your space. Margaret. It's all right, I said gently. You're right to tell me how you feel. I just wish I'd known sooner. I reached for my purse, blinking back tears. I'll get going. I didn't mean to make things harder. She took a small step forward as if to stop me, but she didn't. Wait, she said quietly. You don't have to leave right now. I smiled faintly. It's better if I do. As I walked to the door, I passed the staircase. Grace's little stuffed rabbit lay on the bottom step, its fur matted from years of love. I picked it up, brushing it gently with my thumb. Tell Grace I said goodnight, I whispered. I will, Emily said. When I opened the front door, the rain hit me with its chill. I turned back one last time. She stood there in the warm light of the hallway, her arms crossed, not in anger but in weariness. Emily, I said softly, I'm sorry if my love felt heavy. Her eyes glistened. It was never your love that hurt, Margaret. It was me not knowing how to carry it. I nodded, and for the first time, I saw her not as the woman who had pushed me away, but as someone struggling to stand on her own. I stepped outside. The door closed gently behind me. No slam, no final word. Just the sound of rain. I sat in my car for a long while before starting the engine. The windshield fogged as my tears blurred everything outside. For years, that house had been my second home. Now it felt like a memory. I didn't hate her. How could I? She was just trying to protect her world, the same way I had always tried to protect mine. But love, I realized, doesn't always mean staying close. Sometimes it means stepping back so the people you love can breathe. That night, when I got home, the house felt too quiet. I made myself a cup of tea, though I didn't drink it. I sat by the window again, watching the rain. Every few minutes, I thought I heard the sound of Grace's laughter, or Michael's voice, or Emily humming in the kitchen, but it was only the wind. I reached for the phone more than once, but I didn't call. What was there to say? She had spoken her truth. Now I had to live mine. I whispered into the silence. I trusted her like my own. And maybe that's where I went wrong. I forgot she already belonged to herself. The rain eased near midnight. I could see the faint reflection of the porch light flickering against the window pane. A soft, golden shimmer in the dark. For a long time I just sat there, listening to the steady rhythm of the drops falling from the roof. And though the ache in my chest was heavy, there was a strange peace beneath it, the kind that comes only when something true, however painful, has finally been said. The morning after that night was still and gray. Rain had fallen sometime before dawn, and the streets outside my little apartment glistened like mirrors. Everything looked washed, clean, and yet somehow heavy. I sat by the window with a cup of tea that had already gone cold. I hadn't slept much. My mind kept replaying every word from that conversation, every tremble in Emily's voice, every pause, every look that I had misread for years. It was strange. The more I thought about it, the less angry I felt. There was a sadness, yes, and a deep one, but also a kind of peace underneath it. Like something inside me had finally stopped pretending. For so long, I had wanted to believe that we were fine, that she saw me as family, that we shared the same love for the home I had built, the son I had raised. But now, after everything had been said, I understood that love doesn't always fit neatly between two people. Sometimes it's uneven, sometimes it's misunderstood. That morning, I folded my laundry slowly, one piece at a time. My hands moved mechanically, but my heart was somewhere else, replaying moments that used to make me smile. The day Emily burned her first pie and laughed so hard she almost cried. The way she used to hand me her newborn baby, whispering, "Can you hold him for a bit? He only sleeps in your arms." We had shared real warmth once. That wasn't a lie. It wasn't fake. It was just incomplete. I picked up my phone more than once to call my son, but each time I put it down. He was still away, and I didn't want him to feel torn between us. That was never my intention. I didn't want to be another problem he had to solve. Instead, I wrote him a message. "I'm staying at my sister's for a few days. Everything's fine. Don't worry, it wasn't the truth. Not entirely. But it was the kind of truth a mother tells when she doesn't want her child to carry her pain." Days passed quietly. I cooked small meals for myself, walked to the park in the evenings, and tried to let silence heal what words had broken. There's something sacred about silence, I think. It forces you to face your thoughts instead of drowning them in noise. One afternoon, about a week later, I saw my son's name flash across the phone. I hesitated before answering. His voice was rushed but warm. "Mom, Emily told me you left." "What happened?" I smiled softly to myself. So she told him. "Nothing serious, sweetheart. We just needed some space." "Space? Mom, what do you mean?" "She's been crying every night. She thinks you hate her. That caught me off guard." I turned toward the window again, watching the leaves sway in the breeze. "No, honey. I don't hate her. I never could." He sighed, relieved but still confused. She said some things she didn't mean." "We both did," I whispered. "Sometimes that happens when hearts are tired." He paused. "Do you want me to come pick you up?" "No, baby, not yet. Let her breathe." "Let me breathe too." He didn't argue. He just said he loved me. And for the first time in days, I cried. That evening, I took out a small photo album from my bag. It was the one I kept from the early years. Birthdays, Christmases, the baby's first steps. There was one picture that stopped me cold. It was Emily and me in the kitchen. Flour on our hands, both of us laughing so hard we couldn't breathe. My son must have taken it while we weren't paying attention. Our smiles were real, unguarded, warm, young. I ran my fingers over that photo and felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a softening, a willingness to understand. I realized then that Emily hadn't meant to hurt me. She had only spoken from her own exhaustion, her own unspoken battles. Maybe she had been carrying burdens I didn't see, and in my effort to help, I might have made her feel smaller, like she was being watched or compared or silently judged. That thought broke my heart, because I knew it wasn't what I wanted at all. I had wanted to be her home, not her shadow. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I wrote her a letter. It wasn't long, just a single page. Dear Emily, I'm sorry for how things ended that night. I know we both said things that came from a place of hurt. I want you to know I never meant to make you feel unwelcome in your own home. That house, your home, is full of memories for me, but it's yours to build now. I'll always love you, because you love my son and my grandchildren. That's all I ever wanted, for them to be loved and cared for. Please don't carry guilt. Just carry kindness forward. That's enough for me. With love, Mom. I folded it gently and left it in her mailbox the next morning, early enough that no one would see. Then I walked back to my car, my chest tight but light at the same time. It felt like exhaling after years of holding my breath. A few days later, I got a message. It was from Emily. I got your letter. I don't deserve your kindness, but thank you. I was never angry at you. I was scared. I didn't know how to balance everything. The house, the kids, my job. And I felt like I was failing. I took that fear out on you. I'm so sorry. I read her message 3 times. My eyes blurred with tears, but my heart felt steady. I typed slowly, making sure every word carried truth. We were both trying to love the same family in different ways. That's all. No need for sorry anymore. When I hit send, I felt the softest kind of peace, not loud or dramatic, just a quiet warmth that filled the empty spaces inside me. A week later, my son came to pick me up. He didn't say much, just helped with my suitcase and smiled in that boyish way he always had. When we reached the house, Emily was standing at the door. She looked nervous, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. For a moment, time stood still. Then she stepped forward and whispered, "Welcome home." Mom, that was all it took. We didn't need a long conversation, or an apology heavy with words. That small sentence, simple, trembling, sincere, was enough. I hugged her, and for the first time in a long while, it felt real again. The house smelled like cinnamon and coffee. The kids ran to me, shouting my name, wrapping their tiny arms around my waist. And just like that, the house didn't feel cold anymore. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat on the porch again. The same porch where it had all fallen apart, and where somehow it had come together again. The stars were out. The air was gentle. The door behind me stayed open this time, light spilling softly across the wooden floorboards. I realized something then, that love isn't about staying the same. It's about growing through misunderstandings, about finding your way back when life tries to pull you apart. I had trusted her once like my own, and after everything, I still did. Only now, I trusted her not because she was perfect, but because she was human. Just like me. It's been almost a year since that night. A whole year since I stood outside that same door, my heart heavy with words I didn't know how to say. The seasons have changed. Spring melted into summer, summer into fall, and with each one, the house feels a little warmer again. Not because everything is perfect now, but because we stopped expecting it to be these days. Emily and I move around each other with ease. We cook together again, though we both laugh about who's in charge of the kitchen. Sometimes she hands me the spoon and says, "You do it better." And sometimes I hand it back and say, "No, it's your home now." It's a small dance, one built on respect and care, not obligation. There are still moments when we say the wrong thing or step on old wounds, but now, instead of retreating into silence, we talk. We listen. We breathe. My son once told me, "Mom, you and Emily are so much alike." I didn't believe him then, but I do now. We both love deeply. We both worry too much. And we both try so hard to make everyone else comfortable that we forget our own hearts sometimes. Maybe that's why we clashed. Maybe that's why we also found our way back to each other. One afternoon, while I was folding laundry, Emily came and sat beside me. The sun was pouring through the window, soft and golden. She hesitated for a moment, then said quietly, "I never told you how scared I was back then. I felt like I was failing everyone. And I thought you saw that." I nodded. I did see it. I just didn't know how to help without stepping in too much. She smiled faintly, looking down at her hands. I guess we were both trying too hard. We both laughed softly. It wasn't an apology. It was something deeper. A shared truth between two women who had finally stopped defending themselves long enough to understand each other. That night, after everyone went to sleep, I sat by the porch again, the same spot where so many of my thoughts had begun and ended. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of jasmine from the garden. I thought about all the years, the laughter, the hurt, the quiet dinners, the tears we never showed. And I realized that love doesn't vanish when it's tested. It changes form. It matures. It softens. Forgiveness isn't something you give once and forget. It's something you practice every day, in the way you speak, the way you listen, and the way you let people back into your heart after they've hurt you. I used to think trust was fragile, something that shattered and could never be repaired. But I was wrong. It doesn't break like glass. It bends. It bruises. And if you're patient enough, if you're kind enough, it grows strong again, not the same, but maybe even better. Sometimes when I watch Emily with the kids, I see that same nervous girl my son brought home years ago, only now, she's stronger, kinder to herself, more sure of who she is. And sometimes she'll glance at me from across the room and smile. Not out of duty, not because she has to, but because she wants to. That's when I know we're okay. We've both learned that family isn't about always agreeing, or even always understanding. It's about choosing to stay, to try again, when walking away would be easier. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that love doesn't mean holding on to what was. It means finding peace in what is. I trusted her like my own once, and now, after everything we've been through, I trust her again, not out of blind hope, but out of quiet faith, because sometimes the people who hurt us are also the ones who help us grow the most. And sometimes the hardest goodbyes don't end things. They just make room for a better beginning. As I sit here tonight, the house silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock, I feel nothing but gratitude for the pain, for the healing, for the love that stayed, even when we both thought it was gone. And as the porch light flickers softly against the night sky, I whisper the words I wish I had said that night. You'll always have a place in my heart, Emily. And I know, deep down, she already does.